Dispatch, this is Rhino Combat.
Go ahead, Rhino Combat.
How many other hunters are near me right now?
It looks like there are 9, 10, 11, 12 other hunters are currently working your area.
Okay, set my status to on patrol and put out a call for a few others to come help. I'm on executive, looking at a group of Rathlos circling overhead. Looks like 3 silver and 2 blue.
Your status is now switched to on patrol, and your location is flagged with a request for backup.
Thank you, Dispatch.
What would you do without me?
I'd be in serious trouble.
Obviously.
Audio journal entry number 2. I will never forget the day my Earth changed forever. It was August 7th, 2023, the day that the world sat glued to their screens as one Twitch user's live stream went instantly viral. Clips from that stream were posted and reposted hundreds of millions of times, and all eyes were on Ottawa. Monsters. Swarms of them, straight out of your worst nightmares, were just pouring into the streets of that Canadian city. They came out through what scientists have since revealed was thought of as a theoretical improbability. What they were talking about was a breach, a rip in the very fabric of reality separating 2 different but overlapping dimensions. Or at least that's the way I understand it. Most viewers were skeptical that it was even real at first, thinking that it had to be the work of some incredibly talented CGI artist collaborating with a popular Canadian Twitch streamer. But even the most doubtful critics, after witnessing the nightmare fuel on full display and the people in the streets' reactions to the monsters, had to finally admit it was just too shocking to be fake. We all watched in horror as the invading monsters just butchered the unprepared citizens of Ottawa left, right, and center. And that wasn't even the worst of it. The massacre in Canada didn't stop with just the capital city. In short order, while Ottawa was still being overrun, internet personalities from other locations in Canada began streaming as well. As it turns out, even more breaches had appeared. Montreal and Toronto were the next areas hit with swarms of these things, followed quickly by Mississauga, Kitchener, and Quebec City. The body count began to skyrocket. All travel to and from Eastern Canada was immediately restricted, and every incoming flight was redirected to Logan International Airport in Boston, Massachusetts. Minutes passed, and still more breaches appeared. Newfoundland, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. And shortly after that, there were breaches being reported from every Canadian province. It was only later that we learned it wasn't just in North America. While Canada was flooded with waves of monsters overrunning their cities and countryside, breaches had also opened up in Stockholm, Sweden, Singapore, and Hong Kong. The front pages of every social media platform were swamped with reports of violent monster attacks from these areas of the globe. No surprise, it was the only thing that major media outlets were even talking about. Panic gripped the whole world as countries began to mobilize their militaries in order to help repel the new threat. The next 72 hours were eye-opening for many as we learned that our firepower wasn't going to solve the problem in the manner we had hoped it would. Against these monsters, all but the heaviest ordinances was just shrugged off. For 37 days straight, the world's combined armed forces waged war against the monsters in these cities, shelling the beasts mercilessly. At day 35, it began to look like we were making headway in killing them all. A few of the corpses were even taken for study, but obtaining a live specimen proved next to impossible. None of our tranquilizers were even strong enough to do the trick. Then, on the 38th day, September 14th, 2023, our nightmares were revisited. Breaches began opening up in every country, and monsters began flooding the rest of the world. With most of our armed forces away battling monsters in other countries, those of us still at home were unprotected, and the massacre was unlike anything ever witnessed before. Panic flooded the streets yet again, and it was becoming horrifyingly obvious as the Day of Blood continued. The monsters were quickly outnumbering us humans. But it wasn't all completely hopeless. Through the breaches also came a few people from the other dimension. The most well-known of them was a beautiful woman named Qualili. She ended up in Japan and was the first non-monster through the breach. She wasn't the last. Though dozens of other monster hunters stepped through from the other dimension into our world, none of them quite captivated the world's attention like her. She still has an extremely rabid fan base in Japan. Monster hunters showed us pretty quickly that though our world was now filled with an overwhelming number of new, enormous, and aggressively hostile creatures, we didn't have to be afraid of them. With a little bit of training, a little bit of luck, and a whole lot of never give up,
I can do this all day.
it was possible for anyone on Earth to take up the mantle of monster hunter and take the fight to the invading creatures, putting them on the defensive. While we had already learned very quickly that only Earth's heaviest caliber shells could harm the bigger monsters, what we didn't know is that even the most average tools in a monster hunter's arsenal was still more than enough to take down the toughest of the beasts. So, the governments of this world turned to the monster hunters from the other world to train their armed forces and even some really bold civilians in how to use the weapons capable of killing these monsters. Oddly enough, most of what they use are just bladed or pointed close combat melee weapons. But it works astonishingly well. The monster hunters then decided to share with everyone how they handled recruiting potential hunters. Then they set about establishing bases of operation in the countries they found themselves. And thanks to the internet, all monster hunter guilds and all branch offices in every country, district, province, and state were able to share information on monster hunter recruits and members. This made it very simple to mobilize the strongest hunters where they were needed most, and make sure the more average hunters were in the field locally, where we can manage situations as they happen. In my last entry, I mentioned that I didn't used to have a purpose in life. That's not a problem I have anymore. It's not a bad life, and I really can't complain. Hey dispatch, this is Rhino Combat. Situation's resolved. Thanks for the help. I appreciate it.
Don't take me just yet. Another hunter is requesting backup at 5413 Longview.
Wait, why are you telling me that?
You are on patrol, are you not?
Yes, ma'am.
That's excellent. Glad to hear it. Well, you'd better get cracking.